Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 318. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today I'm talking about how to balance being goal-driven while at the same time allowing yourself breaks and space and flexibility. This is something I've been struggling with lately, and when I say lately, I mean kind of the last couple of months. So this episode is for me as much as it is for you. So what are you going to learn today? I'm talking about how to prioritize your goals to avoid burnout, how to manage your goal deadlines to fit everything into your calendar in a way that works for you, how to know when you might need to take a break, and how to know when you might need to reevaluate your deadlines and your priorities, and kind of shift things up with your goals. But before that, I wanted to remind you, in case you hadn't heard, that I'm speaking with Amanda Cook from Wellpreneur at this year's She Podcasts Live. So this is the very first She Podcasts event, which is a conference for women podcasters. It's being held this October in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And if you can't attend live in Atlanta, there are also virtual tickets that gets you access to every keynote, session, panel, and even some extracurricular activities online. And you get all the downloadable materials and things after the event is over, including access to recordings. So I would love for you to check that out if you're a podcaster or if you're interested in podcasting. I think that this is going to be a great event. I'm so excited. Amanda and I are talking about how to turn your podcast into a book. And we've been putting together our talk for the last month or so, and I'm really, really excited about that. I think this is going to be a great event, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to speaking there. So if you head over to hollyworton.com/shepod, SHEPOD, you can find the sign-up link. I'm going to include now a cute little ad that Jess and Elsie from She Podcasts have put together. And then I'm going to come back for the episode.
Hi, this is Jess.
And Elsie.
And we wanted to take a quick moment to tell you all about the upcoming podcasting event that we created just for women called She Podcasts Live.
She Podcast Live is being held this October 10th through 13th in Atlanta, Georgia at the world-famous Atlanta Marriott Marquis. And it's going to be an absolute one-of-a-kind experience that caters just to women podcasters and those who are thinking about podcasting.
We started with choosing a hotel that not only has amazing ambiance and a 4-star spa, but hotel rooms with optional aromatherapy, circadian lighting, air purifiers, and an alarm clock that simulates the dawn.
We then created the content to be chock full of sessions that are specific to women's needs, confidence, fear, supporting women through podcasting, the power of being unique, work-life balance, and more. Optional morning yoga sessions.
Of course, we'll still have sessions about editing, social media, monetization, and growth, and every session is being taught by a successful woman podcaster who has immense experience and knowledge in their topic of expertise. Some examples: women from Edison Research, Simplecast, PodFund, Google Small Business, The Moth, Blueberry, Himalaya, PRX.
We've loosened up the schedule for more social and sleeping time and planned some amazing parties.
So get out your phone and type podcaster to 66866 to learn more about She Podcasts Live, or go to shepodcastslive.com and we will see you there in Atlanta.
Hurry up and do it.
Hello, I'm back, and hope you enjoyed that. I don't usually do advertising on this show, but I thought this is a great event that I'm super excited about. And like I said, even if you can't attend live, even if you can't travel, if you are a podcaster or you're interested in podcasting, there's going to be all kinds of different tracks. So for people who are new to podcasting, for people who already have a podcast but they're looking to grow it, people who are at a more advanced stage of their podcast and they want to take it even further. So there's all kinds of different talks and presentations and workshops for all the stages of your podcasting journey. So that's it for now. Let's move over to the episode for today. So again, how to balance being goal-driven while at the same time allowing yourself breaks, space, and flexibility. So this topic came to me because, and I think I've mentioned this before, I had a bunch of projects and goals for the end of 2018, 2019 that really were big. They were kind of big projects, big goals, and they all kind of wrapped up about the same time, more or less. And since then, I've still got goals, but I've been in this kind of weird, murky place where I'm kind of recovering from that and kind of feeling bad about not focusing on some of the things that are important to me because I simply didn't have time, and just kind of coming to terms with all of that. So to recap, and I'm kind of going back to stuff that I was doing last year as well, because that kind of influences this year. So, I had my Walk 1,000 Miles challenge last year, which I completed in December, and that was a big deal, and it took a big amount of time. And it's something that I chose not to do again this year because I had so many other things going on, and it was just really low priority compared to everything else. So that was something that I had to let go of. I originally thought I was going to set a new goal for spending time in nature rather than actually walking a certain amount of miles. But even that kind of disappeared. I just did not have time to add that into my calendar. Next, I had my kickboxing grading. Last December, I graded to brown white. This summer, I graded to brown black. So that was, each time training for it, preparing for it, and finished that at the end of, I think it was the last weekend in June. And so that was kind of like another big thing that I'd spent months preparing for. And then, boom, it was after one weekend, it was done, and I got my belt. My book, my tree book, which was released this year on April 22nd. That's something that I worked on the entirety of last year and then worked on very intensely at the start of the year and then marketed it. It's still ongoing, the marketing. So that's kind of been a big thing, but it's kind of starting to fizzle out a little bit. So yeah, that was a huge, huge project. My Bardic grade, Druid training for OBOD, I worked through all of last year, finished that, moved on to the Ovate grade this year, and I haven't been able to keep up with it. So this is a grade that generally takes people longer, between, I think, 3 and 8 years. And it's definitely going to take me more than 1 year. I remember when I was first told that this grade takes people longer than a year, I was really kind of disappointed because, I like to move through things and I like to get things done and I like to kind of really focus. And honestly, with my plant spirit healing initiation apprenticeship, that's kind of taken over my morning routine. Not every day, but it's just given me something else to focus on that has an actual deadline, whereas my Druid training does not have a deadline. So that's been kind of made a lower priority. Getting my UK citizenship, that was a big thing. I had to study for the test, I had to get all my papers together, and that was kind of a project that took a few months, and boom, done. Got my citizenship in last month, in July. And, I've got my ongoing plant initiation apprenticeship, which I just mentioned, which has been every month for the last few months. It's a 9-month program. That's been taking my time, but we're currently at a break. We don't have a course during the month of August, so I kind of have some time off from that, and that's given me some space to kind of step away from that, but also I have homework to do that I haven't done yet, but that I need to do before September. I've got, the project of renouncing my US citizenship, and I've got all the information for that, but I've got some stuff I need to do, and that's still not going to happen until hopefully sometime before the end of this year. But that's another kind of big project that I have ongoing. I had an agreement with my ex-business partner that I've been working through and since the end of last year, and I've got all the paperwork, and that's still not complete, but it's kind of moving forward. Had another big goal to kind of get my financial situation sorted, and that included, budgeting and managing like debt, which mostly got paid off by now, opening up some new bank accounts to organize how we make payments and stuff. and getting stuff like wills and powers of attorney put together. And that we finally got done last month. That's kind of a bigger project that's not completed, but been working towards that. So that's been all really, really good stuff. So this year, looking at my list of kind of projects and goals for this year and the coming months, I want to write a second edition of my South Downs Way book. And as a complement to that, I'm walking the South Downs Way again in September. So that's something that it's on the list, but I haven't really started it yet. Hoping to write another book this year, which is the one that I've been talking about in the last 3 podcast episodes. I had my summer course grading for kickboxing, which I've done, working through the ovate grade for druidry, which I said, not really happening. Wanted to walk the Way South path again because there have been a lot of changes on that path. Haven't done that. Plan to walk the Camino de Santiago in 2021, which I know is 2 years from now, but it's not fitting into my calendar next year because I've booked myself onto 2 long courses. Yeah, so I've got kind of all these projects and goals and things. And again, this is all kind of personal stuff with the books. But I've reached this point where a lot of things have wrapped up, as I said. And so for the last kind of couple months, I've been like, well, recovering. And if you're on my email list, I've also been talking about kind of giving myself permission to recover and integrate from all the healing work that I've done, especially on this really intense healing retreat that I did 2 weekends ago. So I'm at this weird spot where I've got goals, I've got plans, I've got projects, but I'm not really kind of working on them in the same driven, focused way that I had been working on all the things that have wrapped up. And that's led me to think, what am I doing? Am I slacking? Feeling a bit guilty about not being super goal focused driven, which is how I had been for the previous months. And it's led me to think, am I kind of recovering? I don't feel like I burned out, but I do feel like I needed some time off, or I needed some time to give myself permission to take it easy. As soon as I finished writing my tree book, I was really starting to think what is my next book? What am I going to do next? I need to start on the next book. And then, my Master Gut friends told me, no, you don't. You need to market this book that you just wrote. Don't throw yourself into a new book without marketing the one that you wrote. And I knew they were right, which is why that's what I did. But it felt very unsettling to have finished a book and not be writing anything. And I'm still in that weird space where I'm not writing anything, and it feels wrong. But it also feels right because I feel like I needed some time off before starting the next project, even though part of me doesn't want that. Part of me wants to go boom, 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 one book to the next. So how to prioritize your goals to avoid burnout. I have a podcast episode on that. It was not that long ago, episode 304, which was called How to Prioritize When You Can't Do It All. And I think that episode's very useful for prioritizing stuff in general. So how to prioritize your goals specifically. Write them down. I have mine all written down on 1 page in my journal, and then I put a tab on it so I can easily access it to update it. But I have all the goals and projects written down for the year, and with the deadlines, and with all the kind of sub activities or tasks that I need to do to make it happen. And this could also be something that you manage using software like Asana, which I do use for managing certain projects and repetitive tasks and things. I'll link to that in the show notes. Asana is free software that you can use to manage your to-do list. I really, really like it, but for some reason, I also really, really like having my projects and goals written down in my journal. Somehow, that makes it more real for me. And then some of those things I kind of duplicate in Asana, when I was writing my book and managing all the stuff for launching my book, I had all of that set up as a project in Asana with all the different tasks I needed to do to kind of more easily manage that. But keep your projects and goals on something that you can see in one place. I find it easy to have it on one page with your deadlines. And then prioritize them because, some things have external deadlines. So like with my kickboxing grading, that can only happen twice a year, either on the summer course or the winter course. So if I want to stay on track and do the gradings, I need to get ready for either summer or winter, which is why I was, planning to do my brown-white grading in December and my brown-black grading in the summer course of this year. And then I have to wait a year before I do my black belt grading. So I know that's not until next summer. And I am already working on training to that and preparing for that because it's a much bigger grading, but it's quite far off in the future. So those are kind of externally set deadlines. Again, I can choose like when I want to grade is it the summer course or the winter course, but my school puts the dates for the summer course or the winter course. So again, look at which goals or which projects have an externally imposed deadline. Those are the ones that are going to have less flexibility. So get those down first in terms of priorities. Next, look at the internally self-imposed deadlines. How can you manage things? Which goals, which projects are more important than others? Maybe some of your goals involve new income streams, and so you want to have those done earlier than something else. Maybe your business or career goals take priority over your personal goals. Maybe you want to choose one personal and one professional goal to be kind of your top priority in each area. You're going to find what works for you. But the important thing is to manage your goal deadlines based on priority and based on kind of staggering them so you don't have a bunch of deadlines coming up at once. So last year with my projects, I had a bunch of deadlines that I had set. They were kind of both internally and externally imposed deadlines for the end of the year. So I had my Walk 1,000 Miles, which was for the year, so that kind of naturally ended the 31st of December. Then in early December, I had my kickboxing grading, so that was kind of externally imposed. And then I put the goal, and this was something that I chose, was to finish my Bardic grade Druid training by the end of last year. I didn't have to set the date then, but I did. And it was doable, but it probably would have been easier for myself if I had set the deadline for January or February. It was fine, but again, those are kinds of things to keep in mind. And also like this year, like I said, I had the book, which came out in April. I had a bunch of other things going on with the launch, which kind of came up in the following months. I had the summer course in end of June. So I had a lot of things, and my citizenship. So I had a lot of things kind of come together at summertime. And again, some of those things I could have shifted. I didn't need to push myself to get my citizenship when I did, but I wanted to because the sooner I got that meant the sooner I could get rid of my US citizenship, which means taxes will be easier next year. So manage your goal deadlines based on what's important to you in terms of priorities and what are the external deadlines that are imposed on you and which goals lead to other goals. So like I said, some of my goals kind of build on each other or lead to other goals. I had to grade to brown white before I could grade to brown black, before I could grade to black. I had to finish my Bardic training before I could go on to my Ovate training. I had to get my UK citizenship before I could renounce the US citizenship. So I've got a lot of goals that kind of one goal is a prerequisite for another goal. So they're kind of long-term things with milestones, or more than goals, they're even projects kind of. So take these things into consideration when you're managing your goal deadlines and prioritizing your goals. And remember, sometimes we can't do all the things we want to do. Usually we can't do all the things we want to do. There's so many more things that I could do if I had more hours in the day, but I don't, so I can't. So think about what is manageable. Think about what is reasonable. And if you want to avoid burnout, which I hope you do, because this is really something that you need to be aware of when you're planning your goals and your projects. So if you want to avoid burnout, really look at your calendar and be honest with yourself about how much time you have to do things. So I, this week, made kind of a new goal for myself. for the unforeseeable future to meditate 20 minutes twice a day. So in the morning, that's easy because I've got my morning routine. In the evening, I don't know how that's going to fit in. So I actually, before I started this podcast episode, I sat down with my Google Calendar and I thought, well, okay, when is that going to fit into my calendar? And so I sat down and put that all into my calendar. I have another kind of personal goal of getting to bed earlier. And so I've kind of shifted dinner earlier. And then I've realized I didn't actually have time in my calendar to prepare dinner. I just had the dinner itself in the calendar. So I've added that. So time block, like I always say, time blocking is really, really important to make sure that you have the time to do the things you want to do. So look at your calendar and be reasonable about how much time you have to fit in this stuff into your calendar. So like when I'm preparing for a kickboxing grading, I need to practice my line work. I need to practice the fitness. I need to go running. And all that stuff takes time in a schedule when I'm already doing other fitness stuff. So I think I can't necessarily do 2 fitness things in one day, or I prefer not to because I don't want to burn out physically. So I have limited days in the week when I can like go to the kickboxing classes and fit in the extra training on top of that in my schedule. So these are my personal examples, but you hopefully will help serve to trigger ideas and ways that you can manage your own personal and professional goals. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to prioritize your goals, to avoid burnout, and to manage your goal deadlines so they are reasonable and doable and manageable. Also to avoid burnout. So if you've got your goals, you've got your projects, you've got your deadlines, you've got your priorities, it's all time blocked in your calendar, everything is beautiful. How to know when you might need to take a break, and how to know when you might need to reevaluate your deadlines and priorities. So obviously if you're feeling stressed, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you see yourself intentionally going to bed later and or getting up earlier so that you can work on the stuff to achieve your goals, and it's taking a toll on your mental and physical well-being, I think that's a clear sign that you need to reevaluate your deadlines and your priorities, perhaps even take a break. So those are times when you need to step up your self-care, take care of yourself to avoid burnout. And then look at your calendar again. See what you need to adjust. Make sure that everything is time blocked in your calendar. Like I said, including preparing for dinner. If you are the one who cooks dinner, that needs to be in your calendar because that is time that you do not have to do something else. So take an honest look at your calendar. Take an honest look of what you are able to achieve. Go back to your list of projects and goals and take an honest look about your deadlines and your priorities. Do you need to shift things around? Do you need to extend the deadlines for some things? I always feel so guilty about shifting deadlines or extending deadlines. I always feel a little bit like a failure, and that's not a good way to be thinking. It's not a productive way to be thinking. It's not serving you to be thinking like that. When you need to reevaluate deadlines and priorities with your goals and projects, that is not a failure. It's being smart. It's reevaluating your schedule so that you don't burn out. Burnout also, failure is such a crappy word. Burnout is also not failure, but it is feedback from your body, from your system, that you need to not do that again. Slow down, take a break, and work differently so that you don't do that again. So to me, burnout, we've probably all been there. That is a clear sign that you need to do things differently. So if you know you are susceptible to driving yourself to burnout, you need to be ultra, super careful about how you manage your goal deadlines, how you prioritize your goals, so that you don't burn out. So manage yourself as a project. Manage your time so that you're not burning out with your goals. So I hope you have found this useful. I know there was a lot of personal stuff in there, but I think it's important for me to share my personal examples and how I manage them well and not so well, so that you can see how you want to manage your own personal and professional goals. I really push myself, sometimes too hard, and I really get kind of down on myself and beat myself up when I don't achieve the things I want to achieve in the time scale that I want to achieve them. So I think this is a message for me as much as it is for you in terms of giving yourself permission to be flexible with your projects and your deadlines and your goals. Obviously, this is a message for the super driven person. If you are the kind of person who's not very driven and you've been not getting much done, then you need to kind of balance the other way, probably. So this is about finding a happy medium. This is about finding what works for everyone. Everyone is unique. Everyone is different. Everyone is individual. And you need to find what works for you in terms of prioritizing your goals, managing your deadlines, and knowing when you need to take a break. So I talked about staggering your goal deadlines so you don't have everything finishing on the same date. But it's also important to maybe take a break. So not just going on holiday, but like giving yourself a break from goals and projects. So maybe you have a month or 2 months every year. Maybe it's August and December or something like that where you don't work toward these goals. So maybe you take that into consideration when you're setting your goal deadline. So say if I were working on a book, I could maybe block out certain months in the year and just plan to not work on my goals those months, not work on the book in those months. And that would then extend my deadline an extra couple of months. So perhaps you need to schedule breaks from your goals and projects in your calendar and just kind of do the minimum or work on your other things, but take a break from your goals and projects. That might be something that works for you as well. That might be something that helps you to avoid burnout. So hope you found this interesting and useful, and let me know. So as always, you can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and get in touch. Also, reminding you about She Podcasts Live. Again, if you can't attend live in Atlanta, the virtual ticket will give you access to all the talks and materials and downloads and all that good stuff. I would highly recommend it if you have a podcast or are thinking about starting a podcast, because like I said, there are tracks for every level of experience in podcasting. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining me this week. And remember, you can visit hollyworton.com/318 for the show notes on this episode. And as always, the transcripts go live about a week or two after each podcast episode is available. And the transcripts are available to read as a blog post within the show notes, or you can download them for free, no email address required, again, from the same link. So thank you very much and have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.